Good evening and welcome to the November 12th, 2025 meeting of the Middle School Building Committee. This meeting will be a hybrid meeting, both in person and remote. I am recognizing that there is a quorum. I have Kate. Let's say I. Hire. We're here. Chris. Lynn.
Here.
Armin. Here. Marty.
Here.
Josh.
Here.
And Chris, I know, will be joining us, but is not here yet. So the meeting is called to order. Any public comments? Seeing none, I'll move to the approval of minutes from October 22nd, 2025. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes from October 22nd, 2025.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a roll call vote. Kate?
Aye.
Chris?
Abstain.
Lynn?
Yes.
Armin, yes. Marty?
Yes.
Josh?
They don't have to. I wasn't told I had to talk to it.
Yes.
Motion passes. Minute meetings approved. We have no correspondence. We'll go to new business update. The Fontaine CMR contract approval. Marty, do you have a motion?
That's all.
I'd like to make a motion that the school building committee authorize the town manager to sign the Fontaine contract and price proposal subject to final review and approval by town council and town procurement.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, I will call for a roll call vote. Kate?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Lynn?
Yes.
Armin, yes. Marty?
Yes.
Josh?
Yes.
Moving on. Schedule update. Alan?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I can't believe it's November already. We've got the vote passed at the end of September, so that was fantastic. And we got started on design development, otherwise known as DD in our slang. That phase, the architects have been, and design team has been busy with that. It started on October 9th when we had contracts executed for our services and theirs. And it's going to run until March 26th of 2026. And the key dates that are coming up that we're working toward is, I think I told you that we're doing 3 estimates through this phase. We're doing one at design development, and we're doing 2 estimates at construction documents, one at 60% and the other at 90%. And those estimates are both going to be done by Fontaine doing one and PMC doing the other one. So they're both blind estimates to get done. And then once those 2 estimators look at it, or estimators for Fontaine look at it, we get together and we reconcile them, and we come together on where we think the price is. And the whole purpose of that is to make sure that we stay within the project budget through the whole course of the design documents before we start putting it out to bid, to the filed subbids. So the first, it's going to go to the estimators on January 8th coming up of 2026, and they're due back on January 27th of 2026. And we're going to hold that reconciliation meeting on the 29th of January. So with all the reconciled estimates done, then we're going to bring it back to the school building committee meeting with where we are on that budget for your review and approval on February 11th. And then we're going to submit it to the MSBA and DESE the following day on February 12th. So that's pretty much a high-level view of where we are for the next 3 months or so. So a lot of work to be done, but a lot of things coming together on the plans.
Alan, the reconciliation will be just like the last time, like plan for 2 days and we're just going to go back and forth. But if it's a day, it's a day. If it's 2 days, it's 2 days.
It's whatever it takes. Typically it takes a good full day and sometimes a second day, but it's just looking over how much quantity one estimator had versus the quantity of other estimators. So what were you looking at materials here? Because the documents are at a stage right now where not everything's been drawn or selected or specified yet. So people are making kind of guesses, and that's what's called a design contingency, that they hold a reserve for that. So we try to bring that design contingency down to the different phases. DD, it starts a little bit higher and then it goes down at the 60% CD and then down to 90%. And by the time they finish the documents, there should be no design contingency left because it's going out to bid. So it's a good process and keeps us in check budget-wise.
Nice. Any questions on the schedule from anybody? All right. All right, then moving on to design update. Christian and Dory, I'm guessing?
Yeah. Marty, you want to, I think you can just go
Yeah.
forward to slide number 5 if you're driving. Oh, one up from there. So just first wanted to report on meetings that we've had since the last school building committee meeting on October 22nd. On the 29th, we had a site design meeting with a lot of members of our design team as well as folks from town and folks from the district. It was a good kind of initial kind of review of where we were at site design for schematic design and you know, determining priorities moving forward. We talked a little bit about the turf field, which was helpful. Again, this is good to get some of these decisions finalized to bring them into that estimating process that Alan was talking about. We decided that we will have a future turf field focus meeting. So that's on November 17th. But we did start talking about it. We talked a little bit about general site maintenance, which was also really helpful. Talked a little bit about parking and vehicular routes. Nothing really changed there. Some slight, you know, suggestions that our site team's taking into account. Fencing, emergency access around the school. So that was a good kickoff meeting. Kind of the result was, yes, that turf field meeting on November 17th, and then importantly also on November 19th, we'll have another site meeting. That one focused a little bit more on town utilities, and also on phasing of the project and early work that Fontaine might be doing, enabling work, it's called, before the project really gets started. That one will be in person at the Williams Middle School site, which will also be helpful. We can walk around afterwards if needed. But in general, I think, you know, we'll have a lot of these meetings in between school building committee meetings. We have even more than this on the design team side of things. Those we'll just kind of keep quiet about, we won't bore you with, but we will try and come back, you know, for these larger meetings where we're getting input from the town and the district, report back to the school building committee so you guys can stay abreast of those decisions and ask any questions. On here are, again, a lot of meetings we've had with staff on November 3rd and 4th, at, both at Glenbrook and at Williams, that Dory will go into in a little bit. And then just this morning, we had a really helpful data, IT, and audio-visual meeting with the district. Again, just kind of getting people back into the project, and we'll have future meetings on that. But again, clarifying what our scope was in schematic design and making sure there aren't any changes. We've started this design advisory group. We met with them again today. Dory will talk a little bit more about that. And then we've got a security meeting later this week. And then, as I mentioned, that turf field meeting and then that site meeting on November 19th. Any questions on those kind of overall meetings?
Yeah, I have some questions on the turf specifically.
Yeah.
So I think beyond just the general, people didn't want this for any number of reasons, the school, I mean, I think that a specific concern we heard from people that even more in favor of the project overall was turf, for health reasons, but also injury reasons, heating up. And we've had some articles sent to us, some of which I've read, and but I understand that the technology may have changed dramatically over the years. So I guess I got a couple questions. One, are we still taking public input on the turf fields? And I know people can always come speak at our meetings, but whether we have them, is there still a chance to change that part of the design if we want to. And if we are confident that the turf fields are, the concerns, the benefits outweigh the concerns, which I think is maybe a reasonable stance to take. Can we communicate to people who may be concerned about this why we feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, Josh, I think how you concluded that it is, I think the direction that at least I've, the input that we've received, that's the direction the project's going. That the benefits outweigh the concerns. We created, and it was shortly before the town vote, as I recall, a little like maybe 2 or 3 page summary. I'll make sure that gets out to the school building committee. And to be honest, with everything that was going on at the time, I don't know how widely distributed that little sheet was, but that's quite helpful in addressing some of these concerns. It also points to some state resources where people can do more research on their own. We have had those questions at each of these meetings. I think that's why we're having this turf focus meeting on the 17th. I know that we're also going to try and present to the Environmental and Sustainability Committee tomorrow night. And we've got our, with our landscape civil engineering team, Ryan is the expert on the turf fields who's come to the school building committee meeting before and presented, but he'll be there tomorrow night to talk to the Environmental and Sustainability Committee. And I think in general, I would agree with you that from a somewhat objective point of view, it does seem like the benefits outweigh the concerns, but certainly we're open to input. In terms of whether it's too late to change that decision, I mean, I that would be a larger discussion with the school building committee meeting. I don't know, or the school building committee. I don't know if it's ever, too late, but there are repercussions with, these decisions coming later, in that we might need added time or added design effort to change such a major component like that now. But so far, all the meetings we've had, people have been very enthusiastic about it, especially with the amount of different sports that will be played on it, the amount of use that it will be able to take. That it can be used kind of throughout the seasons, much more so than a natural turf field, et cetera, et cetera. I think more of the decision or the questions have been about, what specific line striping should go on there. Should the goals be stored here or there? What type of fencing should go around the synthetic turf field? So that's been more of the focus of the conversation.
I know that Ryan also said that there are material choices on fill that are really, there's cost benefit, and those costs are not necessarily financial costs, but just like differences in performance and to some degree the material quality of it that would be of concern, to the community, and we'd want to get that information out. Those choices have been made. Part of it, this upcoming meeting, I think, is to really start to get at that level of detail. So also, as we evolve the design, we can keep sharing information out about where that's heading.
Yeah, I know we've got input. I guess, I would just address some of that input. I mean, we, as a committee, made a decision. We voted on this. We had plenty of information before we voted in favor of the turf field. So I would not want to waver at this point. I think the input in regards to design elements that may mitigate some of the concerns is definitely something that can be done. I mean, so if you're looking at some of the articles, the one was from the Wall Street Journal or New York Times, one of the big papers. And in the end, it said, they looked at all these fields in New Jersey, and in the end they said, well, they get so much play, there was nothing else you could do but turf. Like the article started out being against turf, but in the end came to the same conclusion that our consultant said. Like, these fields get so much play that there's nothing that you can do but, turf would be the best option for that field. Now, we've also seen some articles come in and said, oh, it's 130 degrees in the summertime, right, on the turf. Well, that was 20 years ago, and that was with pure rubber fill. Does not speak to the stuff that, that can be put on for infill today, the Corconet or the cork, just plain cork or the coconut and the cork together. There's lots of different fill opportunities now that do not represent the same design elements of 20, 30 years ago that bring the negative. And if you're looking at NFL studies over the last, 3, 4 years, there is no discernible difference between ACL injuries on turf versus grass. And that's the NFL. So I know people rail against it on the injury thing, but I just think there's, from a making sure people understood that we looked at this upside down, got all the information and made a decision on it. This was not something that was done lightly. And I think a number of us, including myself, said this would not be my first choice for what the material would be. I'd like a grass field if we could keep it, but you can't. And even if you're looking at this field here on the grassy gutter where the soccer team plays, the goal mouse, we have the, what's the DPW guy? Is it Ryan? No, who does
Sean.
Sean. You know, Sean's asking us not to play in front of the goal mouse for practice 5 days a week because they can't maintain the field without it getting brown spots on the field. We had to pay for the use of the Holyoke Stadium at least 3 times this season for the girls' field hockey because they cannot play on a grass field for the sport. And the MIAA would not let us play on the grass. So, I hear what's out there from the negatives. I just think what you said it best, Dory, is the benefits outweigh the not positives for the turf field. And in a perfect world, I'd love to have a nice grass field like, Real Madrid Stadium, but it's not going to happen here. Sorry, Josh. Sounds like you had something to say.
Yeah, and so this is, for anyone who's been on paying attention to the town discourse the past couple of days, it's one thing for us to talk about something at a meeting, like select board did with water rates for 5 meetings, and another for it to get out to people. And so I totally, we made a decision, we looked into it, we thought about it a lot, and we have consultants who made a recommendation, and that's fine. And that, no, I shouldn't say it's fine, that's good. But we need to make sure it gets out to people, that they understand that we have addressed their concerns, and this is why we made the decision. And something that was circulated right before the vote, I don't even remember it. I'm sure there was so much going on, it didn't get out there. But we should make sure that people are seeing it one way or another, which is much easier said than done. It's really hard for people to get out to people. But this to me is the thing that I think people had a lot of really good faith concerns about, and I want to make sure that people understand they were heard and we're not just brushing aside, and there's a good reason. And one of the things, so Armin, you're saying that the technology has improved. Let's tell people that. And that's really my point. Not that I think we're making a mistake or anything like that, but I want people to understand how we got to where we are.
No, and you know what, Josh? I mean, I'm hearing you. And on the water rates, would you have voted differently if people had said anything else? I mean, the facts were before you, right? You had to make the best decision based upon what you had. And now people are coming back at the 11th hour and saying, I didn't know about this water rates, even though you guys had 7 different meetings on it. It was in the newspaper 20 times. It's like we can't. I know people are always going to have a difference of opinion about it, but we can't be knee-jerk about it. We've had all these meetings. We've discussed it. We had the expert here not once but twice to talk about this. I don't know what more. And if you have a suggestion on how we get it out to more people, I'd be glad to hear that. But 2 letters against is not, to me, an outpouring of information versus the sensing sessions we've had, the town meeting vote on the floor where we talked about this and knew what the plan was. I don't know what else we do. I mean, that's the most amount of people we've ever had on a town meeting floor in the last 10 years, and the information got out there. So if it's not out there, I don't know what more we can do. And I'm sorry, by the way, I'm
just a little sensitive.
I'm sorry that you're going through that, because I know what you're going through, and believe me, you've gone through some pretty big things here.
If I could jump in, I think probably a wider point, and maybe kind of underscoring what Josh is saying a little bit, is just continuing to fulfill our obligation to keep the community informed on where we are with the project. So whether it's the turf issue or the sustainability features of the building or the educational design, I think sort of we just need to regroup and make sure that we're continuing to put communication out there on this project. So I'll talk to Lynn about that and how we can kind of continue to keep people up to date. Some people might be very concerned or have questions about the turf. Others might have questions about the educational design. Others might have questions about the overall aesthetics. So we'll continue to work on that, and we'll go back to that communication that Christian mentioned about the turf and try and push that out as well.
No, Marty, I think that's a great point. Oh, go ahead,
I'm
Kate.
sorry.
You go
Yeah,
ahead.
no,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say something very, very similar to what Marty was just saying, and I think that, obviously, I'm sure we don't have any kind of a budget for any kind of a communication, specialist or a marketing specialist, but I think that this project, especially, in a town this small, we need to find a voice where, it's gonna go out to the broadest audience if possible. And I think that different people use different kinds of mediums for their information, whether it's the reminder, or it's online, or it's emails, or it's text blasts, or it's YouTubes. I mean, there's a lot of variety these days, and I think that we can take, some education from, how our younger politicians are getting their messages out, because people use very, very different mediums these days.
No, I don't disagree with you. I was just going to echo Marty and your point on the other thing is I think we need to have that communication as a whole, right? Not taking out parts of design elements and keying on certain design elements as a communication, but as this is what's going on with the entire project, like you guys were saying, with the updates on PV and sustainability and where we are in the process. And to that point, Alan, I'm going to say, day one, what impressed us about you guys is we were promised that you guys had this marketing person behind it, and I haven't really seen much out of that yet. So if there's
Yeah.
anything you can do to help us on that
Yeah,
messaging,
that'd be
then
great.
I think
Absolutely.
that's reaching
Yeah.
out to Marty.
Yeah.
We'll get on that.
Yeah, I think the more transparent, the better. I mean, I think that the more decisions will be more readily accepted.
Okay. Any other comments? And again, Josh, I know what you're going through. I feel bad for you. Plan changes under consideration?
Sure, let me jump in here on the next slide, Marty. Thank you. So this is just a couple screen grabs from some of what we've been working through. So the 2 days that were spent in the school, the focus there was meeting with faculty of specialized classrooms that have specialized technological needs. So there's always a lot more infrastructure required for STEM and science, some of the special education classes. So we were going back and revisiting, sharing the plans from the SD set with them, talking through the logistics. What's really interesting about the schools, we're taking 2 schools and combining. So that's also opening up all sorts of very unique kind of possibilities and questions that have been very interesting and helpful. So that was largely getting data into the project, because we're trying to sort out both furniture, equipment needs, establish a list of equipment for these specialized spaces, as well as what infrastructure has to be where, and being sure everybody's happy with the direction we're taking. It's all been very helpful. I'd say it's opened up, those conversations opened up some interesting realizations for the staff, that the relationship of PE to OTPT is going to be a real boon to the school, because there's a lot of ways in which those 2 programs can interact and support each other, and it can add versatility to the PE program and to the special education programs. Same with health. Health is currently nowhere near the PE program. We're having a special call Friday, which is not on the list, to talk about health, because there's some real openness to really rethinking the way the health programs are operating at the middle school in relation to how fitness is located, and perhaps, strengthening elements there. So that's the kind of thing that happens, and I think it's opened up larger conversations, I think, for the district that have nothing to do with the school building, that have to do with professional development and prepping for consolidation, which I think has also been really helpful. We've also created this design advisory group, and that largely came out of the fact that the faculty were already starting to have these conversations about consolidation and what that's going to look like, forming a common identity and culture for the school, which is great conversation to be having. So we asked that rather than us continually go to 2 different schools and have 2 different types of conversations with 2 different faculty, that a group be made that is essentially brings faculty from both schools together to work as kind of a leadership group that we would meet with regularly at each phase of the project to get input. And really, the bigger educational questions that we're having wouldn't just be between us and the district offices, but would also have faculty voice. And that group's been great. We've already met twice. The first conversation focused on these academic neighborhoods. There's 2 per grade.
Go down one slide, Marty.
Next slide, Marty, just to touch on that.
Perfect.
So we honed in on this. This is our SD plan, and this is a sample neighborhood of a grade level. So half of a grade is in this combination of rooms. And we talked about how that design came about, and for committing everything to exactly what you see here, are there any tweaks we wanted to make in terms of the relationship, and how could we support education going forward? So we weren't just, particularly looking at the area shared between, because there's lots of different ways to use that, and also the relationship of classes and how differentiated are classes from each other. So if you go to the next slide, these are just a couple slides from that conversation that I led, talking about really moving away from that kind of more traditional lecture style teaching, to which teachers have obviously started to move away from, but how you may go even farther with that in relation to other spaces to support students. And a lot of the goal in this school has been about developing more resilient learners who are capable of independent learning and learning with each other, rather than simply being kind of, it's a progression from elementary school to high school. We want them to be very capable learners and independent learners by high school, so they succeed in high school. A middle school is really where some of those progressions need to be thought out and supported. So the common area between, on the next slide, just this is to show the different ways that space could be used. And believe it or not, a large conversation topic in every school now, but particularly at the middle school level, is the role of lockers and student storage, which has taken a lot of time. And I think we came to a good conclusion today based on that, which is not to have that destroy the shared space. Keep lockers in the school, but we even had one of the teachers do a survey, which was helpful, of students to get their input. And I know it seems like a small thing, but it's kind of a big thing in middle school. So that was quite helpful as well, and that's helping us to hone our thinking about the common areas.
So question on that.
Uh-huh.
We put all the lockers in the high school and they don't get used
Right. They don't in high
at
school.
all.
Right.
And that was the biggest mistake we made. I was one of the biggest mistakes we made on the high school
Yeah.
project.
That's why
And
we-
in the middle school, are they being used? Is that what they're saying?
So it's they are being used. There's actually a very lovely bell curve that reflects the.
Well, and Glenbrook is going to be different than,
Exactly. We know that too.
because they
so
didn't
it's-
use them at Glenbrook
Yeah.
when we put the brand new ones in there. So we decided not to spend the money on Williams because they
Yeah.
weren't being used. Is that my memory correct?
People did their things.
Yeah, Williams wanted to renovate them so they were wider to accommodate today's backpacks, but
And
And then that did
data
not,
didn't
they did
really
not-
show middle school using them to the degree for the money would have cost.
Right, and interestingly, in this survey that was done, one of the things that really jumped out to me is that students do want to put their coat and lunch bag somewhere, but they're not going to give up their backpack. You'd have to pry it off of them. So maybe we were also of the opinion that if you're going to have lockers, they got to be big enough for the backpacks, but in reality, they're not letting go of the backpacks. Maybe that doesn't need to be the case. So we're and the reason it came up is that we were showing the faculty that 100 lockers in that space that I was just showing you takes up a lot of space.
Mhm.
There's not a lot of space for a lot else. And then you have a larger corridor, thicker walls. We have all the same concerns you do, and it's not that lockers are bad, but that is it impeding other things that you want to have happen in the corridor, particularly close to the classrooms. And the decision, I think, that the consensus seemed to be, after much thought, because I'd say they also really felt this concern too, but that doing away with lockers might also be a huge mistake, but that actually moving them to peripheral kind of locations and sizing them appropriately so that they don't overwhelm the corridors is kind of the way to go. And then I think we're still going to have to deal with the fact that when students go into the classroom, they're still carrying a backpack. And that teachers don't want to give up the storage of a classroom for cubbies, and I don't think they're going to. We can accommodate that with hooks and, you know, baskets and things like that a little bit, but it is a persistent problem that the amount students are carrying into the school and dealing with. Middle school students do tend to carry their coats still. High school students often don't. So there are kind of trend lines toward high school that make it a little bit different. But we in high schools, we put lockers, but fewer, and we put them associated with specific spaces. So it's in middle school, you still have a big debate.
Nicole's, do you have any thoughts on this?
I think it's a tough conversation because yes, I agree. You know, the high school definitely doesn't use them. I was saying that my oldest went through 4 years and I don't even know if she knew where her locker was. But she also never wore a jacket in high school or did anything because she didn't want to have to carry anything because she didn't do it. But I think middle schoolers tend to have more stuff, especially our sixth graders. Sometimes they still wear like actual like kid boots during the winter and like take them off and change and stuff. So I just think it's tough. Like I don't know what the right decision is for this. I don't think we should do half of them. I know that came up in the meeting earlier today. I think that would be a disaster. If everyone wanted to use them, we'd have to do a lottery or like have them sign it out. I don't like that idea. But I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. We definitely need a place for them to put their stuff. I mean, we often hear teachers saying they don't want backpacks on the floor in their rooms because they could trip over them. And so I think we just have to have a plan either way. Because we don't know what the rules are going to be or what we're going to do in the new school as far as those things go. So is there enough room in the classroom where backpacks are put against a certain wall or... Yeah, I don't know. Like, I know Nikki said this earlier, but these pictures look so clean. It's like, where is their stuff? It's like, I don't know.
So the one I went to this middle school with the large opening, not the yellow opening, the one on the right. So that's Situate Middle School. So top right hand side, the lockers are along that corridor. They're just not cluttering the common area. And I think they went through the same exact debate.
Oh, I see.
And same exact thing. And that one that, you know, we had the same discussion about, okay, if you have the lockers come to this high, are students just going to put their stuff on top? The answer is yes. This is like a lovely award-winning school that works quite well. They could not give up the locker debate either. They did create them, and they tried to kind of ended up almost, I'd say, where our group ended up today in their discussion, which was, yeah, we kind of can't take it away from middle school. So, but appreciate the conversation because
I mean, I know the history of what we went through here with multiple schools on them in the past. So
yeah.
You said there was a survey. One of the teachers had done a survey.
Mm-hmm.
What did the kids say?
So again, you had I think it was maybe 20% that really wanted them, 20% that really didn't, and then it was a curve like this in between, and that really reflected in their use as well. And then what was most interesting actually was, what do you put in your locker? And that actually surfaced a lot of very interesting things that I can see why people would be uncomfortable at that age. You know, I mean, there are things that you need to put there. People have instruments and you know.
And that was just 8th grade though, Dory, right?
Yes.
I think so, and that right, because they were talking back to what they've done in 6th grade.
Yeah, but I think it could look different.
Yeah.
6th grade versus 7th versus 8th, right? Like I think there is a little bit of a difference. And now with our new cell phone policy, it does go in their backpack. Their backpacks are on them all the time. But I do think that, you know, I mean, it's not a bad idea to ask the 6th or 7th grade if we wanted to just dipstick again. But. Mm-hmm.
But wasn't also the thinking that 8th grade is the least likely to use them, and there was still substantial use?
I agree. Like, I think they are the least ones to use them. 6th grade does, and I get it, the instruments, most of the kids go to the instrument hallway to put their instruments away.
Yeah.
A lot of them can't fit them in their lockers.
Right. So after the
So
meeting,
that-
we were kind of starting to do study, like to hone in on size and think about how we might use the music area to pull the big stuff out. And that might
Yeah.
help us out. So we're still studying it, but you can see how it impacts other things.
Have you,
So,
I guess, move further on this topic then, have we talked about music lockers?
yeah, so that had come up, and we were already talking about storage in the music area, and
Okay.
particularly with those teachers, they definitely wanted, area, but that students are bringing things in, because that's what happens now. They bring the instruments to that area and often leave them in the hallway or in the storage near the music rooms and inside the music rooms. So
Yeah.
that will get cleaned up automatically. I think the question becomes, do we want lockable areas there, or is it okay if it's just in that wing where the teachers are observing it? And that's just a design. We've kind of made a suite there that the teachers can see intentionally, so that would be a cheaper solution than putting more metal loud lockers all over the school.
Okay. I know like some of the instruments are pretty expensive. so-
Yeah, right. So we'll
I might
keep
be a
going.
little out of touch, but do kids bring changes of clothes for after-school sports or activities, or?
Not very much.
Not in
I mean,
middle school, right?
that's the next controversial topic of every middle school, which is
No shower.
What?
showers and changing.
I see.
They actually do, some of them will bring, like, sometimes in our office, we have like lacrosse sticks and backpack, like
That's
we
the biggest.
sometimes house kids' stuff in
Yeah.
the office.
Yeah,
But not, it's not a preponderance of kids. It's a
Right.
small minority.
exactly. And I mean, I think we're moving towards a consensus that I had to break it to us that
Can
we,
we hear them both?
that we do by code have to have two showers. And I think that the thinking is that having a couple changing rooms near those two showers is helpful for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it might be an after-school use of the building as well. So to create some place where there can be changing, but students don't change for gym class in middle school.
Right, but after-school
But
activity.
right, exactly. And there could be theatrical performances and other reasons why you'd want to change.
If you've been in the Glenbrook shower, you will know that the water has not hit the floor in the last 20 years. So.
Yeah.
But there could be lockers in a gym locker.
But people do
Right,
change.
exactly.
I mean, I know they change for games on the weekends. So.
Right, so just want to allow that changing to occur.
I just wanted to share, we don't have them change a lot, but sneakers, I get deliveries of sneakers all day long, and then they end up in their lockers. So
They go somewhere.
kids like to wear like those UGG boots, and they can't run in them, so there's always sneakers being delivered with lunch boxes all day long. Just a heads up.
So maybe it's just that nobody wants to admit that they use their lockers.
So some sort of storage sounds
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's a necessity, yeah.
We also talked a little bit about classroom differentiation, the question, because early on it had been clear to us that faculty in different disciplines had different desires for classroom layout and furniture. And as we started working towards these communities, some discussion about whether that should change the nature of the furniture selection. So we vetted that with the DAG a little bit, and I think we slightly altered, but not significantly, the general plan we had in place. I think there's a little bit of difference that we can accommodate. I think the concern for the school is that if they commit to just all one thing, and that's it, it's a long time before anybody buys more furniture. So how do we make sure that there's enough here that it really supports the school and doesn't feel like it's become dated quickly? So making good decisions, basically. I think what we did decide, and one area that was, I think, soft in SD is what that large classroom called the community, I'm calling it the community room, but we have a classroom that's part of the vocational tech commitment from the MSBA that can be very multi-purpose, and I think we've had some good conversations about the usefulness of that as a unique space that teachers can team teach in, that more kind of station-based learning or collaborative learning can happen in, and therefore it might be treated differently since we're staying somewhat more straightforward in the classrooms. And then to get into, that's all the educational planning. We have more going on there, but I'd say there's two strands. One is the educational planning and furniture thinking and technology for instruction that we've been trying to double check. Simultaneously, quietly, not in front of everyone, we're working through, can we fix and make the bathrooms better? Can we make the roof line work here or there? So we do these larger moves that we're exploring that are about we're putting structure in, and essentially it's the consultants working collaboratively to try and keep revising and rebuilding the model and moving towards the drawings. I'll let Christian talk about some of those moves.
Great. So yeah, lots and lots of little minor changes all over the place, but we wanted to, if something more significant is occurring, we certainly want to bring that to you. So up on the upper right here, we have the first floor plan as it was at the end of schematic design. And what kills Dory and I, we actually throw away our 3D model at the end of schematic design and start all over again. We've found that it's just because we have, during schematic design, you're basically, mixing things together. It turns into a mess. So it's easier to start all over. So we take kind of a step backward to then move forward. But as Dory mentioned, we're also, now is when we're really coordinating with all of our engineers. So we're meeting with them every week or two. And so as all of that, those layers of information come into the 3D model as well, it's really important to start from a clean slate. So kind of the major move that we've made since schematic design is changing our roof line a little bit on the 2 classroom wings. And so that's reflected here in plan. What's happened, and you can see that in the B wing, is that basically we mirrored the B wing. So before, the resource rooms and small group rooms were on the south side, which is to the left of the screen, and now they're on the north side. And that was one, aesthetically, we thought it was helpful to kind of clean up that roof line a little bit. We also heard a lot of feedback from the district that folks wanted daylight directly into those rooms, and they are landlocked because they are not used 100% throughout the day. But by changing the roof line, we're able to get some high windows up on that northern wall of those small rooms. So that helped a great deal to mirror that middle B wing. We're cleaning up the front entry a lot, and we're going to reserve it until our next school building committee meeting, but we'd like to show you some kind of 3D renderings as you walk through that space. But we kind of had some, and you can't really see it, but in the schematic design floor plan, we had a little bit of extra space just to the north of that front entry. The front entry also protruded out from the building and we thought was a little bit of an awkward manner. So we've cleaned that up a little bit, consolidated it, pushed the classroom wing a little bit further south, and think we're making some great improvements there. Minor issues like bathrooms, we're really going through making sure that we're meeting all of our clearance requirements. And then the one area that I have circled over there by the cafeteria is where, for now, we have inserted the 2 code-required showers. Those might actually flip to the other side of the hallway. We're still evaluating that, but we're looking in that area to incorporate those. Any questions on that first floor? Second floor, Marty, if you want to go down a sheet, very similar. So again, that second floor of the B wing, that's the that classroom wing kind of in the middle. Again, has been flipped since schematic design. Another area that we got some feedback of folks wanting more access to natural light was the math lab and lit lab. And so those were landlocked in the center of that kind of guidance counseling suite. And we've shifted that so that they are now on the south wall, and we've got some group rooms and bathrooms that don't need as much access to daylight in the center there. And then we've also done some rearranging of the teacher planning room. That's the circle at the far west side of the southern classroom wing. And so kind of, again, just cleaning that area up and trying to be a little bit more generous in what we can give to that teacher planning room. This shows a section of that classroom wing. Again, at our next meeting, we'll be able to show you a 3D kind of exterior massing view, which will help. But you can see on the upper right is the schematic design version where we had that clear story landing, and it was landing in the middle of the commons so that we were getting daylight into the commons, but it was landing in a little bit of an awkward spot structurally. It wasn't lining up with our grid lines in our structure going down to the foundation. And we had a flat roof over on the classroom wing that was for mechanical equipment, but It wasn't working out very well because the mechanical equipment didn't have the clearance that we needed. So we in fact think that we can do a sloped roof on that classroom side on the north, which will help. We want to try and expose that structure and have that ceiling feel much more generous. And so you can see here we've got some daylight getting into that resource room, some borrowed light being able to go into that classroom that's on the north side. Hopefully plenty of room for our mechanicals with that roof sloping up. We're still working on that with our mechanical engineers, but all of this is certainly seems to us to be a huge improvement over what we had previously.
So that slope is more gradual than
Yeah.
the schematic design, and so is the height going to be reduced by a little?
No, because we extended the roof.
So it's just extended.
So
it's just more gradual.
It was way higher,
okay,
and then we realized that by making the slope more gradual. Good eye, Armin. So yeah, it's a 2 and 12 slope. Before I think we were at 3.5 and 12, and we're still planning on that being PV ready, which we'll get into a little bit. That's facing due south, so that's all still working out very well, and we are still over the height maximum, but not by very much. Yep.
Any questions? Thanks for the update. That was great.
Great.
I'm glad to see the process as well with working out like it is. So that's great.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Okay, moving on to Massive.
Sure. So we wanted to just touch back on sustainability issues in general. I know probably this will start getting boring to hear about. So there's the LEED scorecard, is the LEED certified school. And we're constantly checking in on that, and we've gone from our schematic design into this phase where we've kind of spent more time with our consultants really looking at all of the lead points and where we really want to put the priorities based on this project, this school, and how that lays out. But there's also the Mass Save incentive. Remember, we've committed to the Tier 1 pathway, which is basically sets an energy use intensity target for the project. We did energy modeling. Remember, we went through that extensive modeling and showed you that in the last phase. We delivered that model to the Mass Save team because they've now hired a third-party consulting architecture firm or energy modeler that reviews the project constantly. So at every delivery, we send more information to them, and they keep track, and they give us feedback. So we sent that energy model to them, which showed us a sub-20 EUI, which is really very, very good. And they were very impressed and very excited. It was also preliminary. Obviously, we have a lot more programming and information get into it now. But they gave us back some comments that then, we need to respond to, and we'll be responding to now. But it raised issues for the team to discuss, like, are we sub-metering the EV charging stations, or is it just 1 meter? And that typically those need to be broken down into various meters. So there's EV charging is 1 meter, the PV array wants to be on another meter, so that there's a different kind of calculation for each of those. They wanted to specifically clarify the building's use during the summer, because that does change the target. So we have the information based on our early calculations, and we also assumed our target was 25, and Mass Save is saying, well, if you're not using the school in the summer, then your target has to be even lower, which is okay because our target, we're already looking good for that. So it's not an issue, but you can see sort of why, that is. They want an even more efficient building because all that cooling is kind of energy wasteful in the summer if it's not occupied. And so it kind of gets into balance issues, but we've designed our energy model based on the information the district's given us, which did not have heavy use in the summer.
So I guess district, is that still accurate, or would we consider moving like our summer programs there because the energy would be more efficient than this high school?
We might move some of our summer programming. Right now, all of our enrichment is here. Our special ed program is at an elementary school. Marty, I don't know if you, we haven't really run a middle school academic program in a number of years.
I know Williams is currently used for summer athletic programs.
Outside though, they don't really
Go inside when it rains.
Well, when it rains.
I don't know, I'm
We
just
won't
making
we
sure.
won't air condition it for them for when it
No,
rains.
no, I agree, but yeah.
Yeah, it's not really a program that's there all summer though.
Okay, I'm just making sure every rock is in
I don't know if Marty has anything.
Yeah, Marty, you got anything on that?
Nothing additional. I know our middle school principals have talked to us over the years about, summer academic programming, for credit recovery or to prepare kids for high school. So, I mean, I'd say, in general, new building presents new opportunities, but we don't have any specific programming that we've yet identified for the summer.
So it's a good question to raise. It doesn't ultimately, I wouldn't say make a decision based on this because we're going to be in good shape. So, and
Yeah.
certainly the school's available in the summer when you're ready to use it that way.
So the other question I guess I have in regards to the second thing, electric vehicle charging stations and PV arrays should be sub-metered.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing two things. One, is that in our purview as the school building committee? I guess it is from a construction and what's going to be there, but I'm sure you have input, Lynn, on what that looks like.
I thought they had to be by the utility, so that aligns with what I already thought we had to do. I mean,
Okay.
that's what's happening now
Okay.
with the EV
Yeah,
stations,
and
so.
we did assume that, so we're just noting the clarification and alignment on that. There was no question on it.
What's the intended user of the EV stations?
So that becomes a larger conversation. So EVs are required now in construction, and there's a certain percentage. And what is required is that you put them in to make them available. That's the state's interest. How you manage them is kind of independent, is my understanding. And I know the town has a history on this as well. But it has to be a project commitment to create the EV stations, whether you are making them publicly available or controlled. That is actually not dictated by the state.
Okay, so there's no way, well, we have a history. Ours are currently chained up because our provider went out of business, and even when they weren't chained up, it was like $9 an hour or some outrageous price.
Yeah.
As much as anywhere else, because that's what our utility charges us.
Right.
So we're really, is there a waiver to get around it?
No, I highly doubt it.
No.
I mean, that's an interesting, DOER hasn't had a waiver for this. Whether that will change, I don't know, because I think as people start to experience this, that maybe comes along as a possibility. Chris, I don't know if you've heard of any waivers for that, but I've never seen a waiver. And they didn't even have a waiver pathway, but I know people said, gee, there should be waivers for some of these DOER requirements. I do think that, tipping, just in general terms, this is one of those things where we would hope the town had a specification they wanted us to meet for the EV stations. If they don't, we'd make a recommendation. And there's abundant number of programs to work with. Some seem to not, seem to be short flyers that I wouldn't trust, and some that seem to be pretty solid now. So that should be taken into consideration. So we do want the town to tell us if they have something specific, I think, and I think we'll continue to talk about this, but we don't have the ability to, and we have planned for this in the
And I
estimate.
guess that's just my point for Lynn, or bringing it up, is that, we can put the infrastructure within the middle school building committee purview, but if it doesn't match up with the infrastructure that's in town, or however you're billing in town, or whatever you choose to,
Right.
so. And Josh, I'll just say, personal experience, like, if I'm there for, a 2-hour soccer game, I'm probably hooking in if it's no more than I pay at home.
It's more than you pay at home.
Well,
So-
no, wait.
We'll talk about that. I'm curious why
telling
that
you,
is. Yeah.
At home right now, it's 34 cents with the delivery charge. I mean, I know it's way more there, but I mean, commercial charges around the area you can get at like 18 to 22 cents at commercial places. So if we get competitive, I'm not saying we are now, Yeah, I mean, I still, even if it was 50 cents, I would probably still plug it in, just peace of mind.
Right. We're
Do
just,
they require the actual stations to be installed? Sorry.
How does,
Go
how
ahead,
do
John.
these
No,
get,
go ahead.
how does the company get
No,
paid?
sorry,
We
require the
are
actual
EV
stations to
provider.
be installed?
Hold on.
Just the infrastructure being placed, because what we find with like the accelerated repair program with MSBA is, for the, for themselves on the roof, they just want you to be solar ready in some situations. You know, based on the town's position and certain bylaws and things like that.
This is an energy code requirement of the states. It's not the MSBA at all.
And Dory, there's so many that have to be put in up front, but then a percentage that have to be infrastructure ready, correct?
Yes, exactly, for future.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and that's just about putting the conduit and the, anticipating that future capacity, yeah. This is much more about the state's climate goals than the MSBA.
So we have to actually pick an actual station.
You do have to put in, I believe it's 5% of your
How do
parking
towns
spaces.
decide what company to go with?
So the previous company we were with, we had an energy consultant work with us on it, and we picked a provider that was offering the same technology, but at a much reduced cost compared to ChargePoint, which is like the most well-known besides a Tesla charger, and that didn't pan out so well in the long run.
I just know a lot of car manufacturers that manufacture EVs, for some reason, have agreements with Electrify America, where they give, 2 or 3 years free charging on their vehicles. And I think a lot of EVs are on that program.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how that, matches up with using them or, but if people are going to buy a new EV, they're going to probably get free charging with Electrify America.
Yeah, at participating stations, I believe.
Mhm.
So I'm
Yeah.
not sure that we would qualify, but it's
Yeah, I
something
don't know
worth
how that
looking
works.
into.
it is complicated, and
Yeah.
No, it's super complicated. I
Having-
mean,
being an EV owner, the amount of options out there and the amount of options that don't work, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have an EV as well. Yeah.
that's like Big Y had built all the superchargers and they don't work.
They don't work.
They've
Right.
just been off forever on the Shell
Yeah.
recharge.
Yeah.
But I do have to say, I have a huge solar panel system on my home, and I don't pay anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
Go.
yeah. So another thing, this is a
Another fun-
softball.
fun
Softball.
topic.
So they asked about whether the district wanted to consider low-flow toilets, and I know the answer. I
answer
just
is
wanted to share.
no.
The answer is no.
Strong no,
It's a
actually.
good example of where sustainability kind of
Yes.
gets ahead of reality.
Nick was like ready to jump out of his seat to answer this question.
I know. I brought that
I'm
one.
gonna say amen, thank you.
So there's a lot more that will be happening. What really is kind of also important to know is that we have the effort moving forward. I believe the town is working with Colliers to find that IRA tax consultant, because that we're now at the point where the IRA tax consultant becomes important to talking about the geothermal system. So geothermal is in the project, and there's still federal tax credits for that project. And that was a big part of the original plan here. So in general, everything's going well with Mass Save program, very happy about it, and we're moving on to the next round. We also did take a look at the LEED scorecard, as I said, and I just thought it's often impossible to understand what the priorities are in the scorecard, so I wanted to summarize some of the highlights on this project, things that are, getting particular attention on this project. So in the water category, rainwater management, indoor water use reduction, and water metering. Indoor water use is not going to the low-flow toilets, though, so that's great. We're very aware of that. Energy optimization, because of the MSBA's additional reimbursement, that's associated with the energy alignment with the opt-in stretch code. So that automatically puts us in the high point scoring for energy optimization. And tied into that is not only optimized energy use, but also commissioning of that system. Grid harmonization is an interesting one because that has to do with basically forming a relationship with the utility that you are, as a large user, available and willing to discuss the possibility that if there's a power outage, you would lower your energy use in order to allow them to have a little bit more energy on the grid. So it's a conversation that they want us to have between the district and the utility. It doesn't obligate you to participate, but even just having the conversation is kind of a lead point and something that we do recommend. And if you go that way, it's kind of has some financial benefits to the district. So it's something we'll talk more about. We did discuss a little bit already. And then the fact that we have this renewable energy, both with the geothermal and the potential for the PV, means that we're just really stacked with really good points in the energy category. MSBA's priority is on a material product declaration and air quality. So those are high points focus for us. There's also environmental product declaration collection, which is really not about the chemical nature of the product, but where it's coming from and what the life cycle and carbon impact of that is. So those are both categories that we would normally look at. Adding to that, we're in this project because the codes are starting to require that you assess carbon use, all the life cycle of carbon. So where building materials come from and how they end their lives. That's going to be in the next version of LEED, a standard requirement. We are prioritizing that on this project as well so that we can actually make good decisions along the way based on that. And it won't affect you, but it affects us. We're putting more time and energy into modeling and calculating that. And then some things that on this project we're also looking at are designed for active occupants. It's a point we've gotten on other projects. Doesn't require much, but it really does bring a focus back on middle school health. Assessment for resilience was really just about district conversations about how this building fits into other kind of community resilience concerns, and that's already taken place. Clean construction is a logical point for a project like this because of, in general, it being a public building in a neighborhood, and it's a point we've gotten before, and it really is a collaboration between design and construction. And then exterior noise control, you can explain a little bit more than I can, I think, because that's
Yeah, well, our acoustic consultants were actually out there already and put in some boxes in trees. So if you go to Williams Middle School and you see a box chained to a tree, that's actually a thing taking acoustic readings. And then you compare that with, they then model how much exterior noise our mechanical units will produce, and then take some measurements at the end of the project. So it's an interesting point on the LEED scorecard.
And there are things that can be done in the design of the systems to try and mitigate sound impact in the area. So we're trying to kind of keep those levels tolerable and not in any way, become problematic. So part of the process, basically, design process you wouldn't think about, but that's what we do. The next slide is just showing you as a reminder that in schematic design we had anticipated the possibility of PV in the future. And this first slide shows where our sloped roofs are relative to our flat roofs. Which the slope.
One more, Marty, sorry.
Sorry, that's our LEED scorecard for anybody who has a microscope. There you go. That's the sloped and flat roof plan at that time. As Christian mentioned, we've kind of altered that a little bit. We have more sloped and flat now than we had at this stage. And the ridge line has shifted a little bit on the first two volumes. And then I think the third, we're not 100%, I think that's generally right as well.
Yeah.
And then the reason we were looking at that is that in schematic design, Lynn had asked about PV and its potential impact to the project and had asked us to go and look at that. And I don't think we really had a chance in the meeting to talk about it. So I just want to bring that back because at that stage, we looked at that and tried to calculate that. And we also looked at what the advantages are and settled on the idea of planning for a 500 kilowatt KWDC, I can't even tell you what all that means, array. That's the breaking point it's roughly appropriate for this size of project, but also beyond that, you start to have more complex relationships with the utility in having anything larger than that. So that keeps us in a kind of a quite useful parameter, and it's what they estimate is appropriate here. And that would meet roughly, per our energy modeling, about 75% of the total energy use of the building. Now, I wouldn't take that to the bank because there's a lot of design work still to be done, but that's based on the energy model at this point. So it's clearly a contributor, which is just, I think, something that you asked for that data. And I know the community has expressed a lot of interest in understanding, is PV being looked at or not? And it's always been a part of the conversation. As we know, the question has always been about sequence and when we would want to implement bringing PV into the project. So,
Is there a break even on it? Or we haven't gotten that far?
you mean in terms of the payoff for the investment? Yeah, and I mean, I can't tell you at the moment because it's sort of always changing based on the cost of PV. But again, it's a public building, and the building is going to be around for 50 years. And if you have the resources, it's more the advantage of compared to, say, a homeowner with a school. This is your one-time opportunity for the community to make this investment, and then that lowers your operating costs,
Right.
which enables the school district to make different investments with their operating,
Absolutely.
budget.
Yeah.
So I know what we had talked about before was that PV ready versus doing the PV now.
Yeah.
And the plan that we've talked about was using any of the Mass Save rebates at the end, or
Right.
at least our intent would be that we would hope the town would reinvest any of the rebates back into the panels at that time. But it sounds like we might need to have a conversation here offline
Yeah.
about what that effect that would have on the DD and going forward. So like that's saying Lynn, Marty, yourself,
Yeah.
Lynn, whoever you want to bring in
Yep.
from that should be having that conversation offline. And what does that do to the entire budget and the contingencies that we have out there? And whether,
And part of
whether
it
it makes
is-
sense
yeah.
to spend $3 million now versus later. If that,
Or even later. I mean, I think part of it is
Or-
just that we want to be sure that you're in the best position for when you want to do
Okay,
that.
thanks.
And if we just say PV ready, honestly, that means conduit and making sure the roof is strong enough to hold it. I mean, that's not actually a large lift, but that also doesn't mean that you can plug in panels after we leave. So we're more concerned about being sure, as you've all heard, coordinating with the utilities is very complicated. So we just feel it's better in the long run for all of that planning and coordination to be done
Yes.
as the project's moving forward. So it's not that we're necessarily having to jump and spend contingency early, so much as it is we're thinking that it might be a good idea to invest in the design effort necessary to be sure it's done in alignment with the building, so that you can keep the permitting process, with the utility aligned. And I think you'll be in a better position at the end.
Yeah, and I think it has to match up with the town's larger energy goals as well.
Yeah, I would imagine it would actually cost potentially less to do it, to include it now versus remobilizing later, going back out to bid, bringing in different contractors
And we can optimize the roof. So think about how many things penetrate a roof at a school.
Yep.
So having us prioritizing this now means that we can actually get you a better result, I think, in what that roof is going to be able to do as PV. So,
Yeah, we definitely take that
Yeah.
offline and
Yeah.
have a better discussion
Yep.
about it.
yeah. And it just feels like partly we did continually hear those questions and felt like we hadn't answered them well enough. So just want to come back to it.
We definitely have had those questions from the finance committee and energy and sustainability people. So, yep. All right. Any questions on any of that?
Marty, you can go to the last slide, just in terms of future meetings. Again, we've already reviewed those ones on the left, but just for the school building committee, rough, very, at this point, extremely rough agendas for the meetings going forward. For next month, talking about site and security, which we're going to meet on soon, and so reporting back to you on that. Design updates, like I mentioned earlier. PV will continue to talk about. January is really when we look at kind of the final floor plans and the exterior elevations and materials, because that's really when it's going to the cost estimators that Alan was discussing. And then already in February is when we're hopefully voting on the DD cost estimate and on the MSBA submission. So it feels like a long process, but then it also feels like it's very fast. So it's a little bit of both.
Question. If we're gonna talk about security, would we just plan an executive session for that?
Depends on how detailed I think they're gonna get.
I mean,
Yeah.
I guess I'd put it on the agenda as
Right.
executive session, and then we can decide whether we're getting into details. That shouldn't be out there in the public domain.
Right, so you're thinking is we would still have the same time, but we would spend part of it in executive session so it could be more.
I would.
That would be really
And I would
helpful,
say
actually.
under four,
Yeah.
number 4 of the executive session meetings in Massachusetts. It would probably be our first executive session.
Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions on the calendar? Okay, with the next meeting's out there from Tammy already, I know that.
December 10th, I think.
December 10th, yeah. So, all right, if not, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second?
They have motion
Second.
second. Too late, Marty. Kate,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Lynn,
Yes.
Marty,
Yes.
My first question.
Josh?
Yes, if you said me.
Yep. Carissa?
Yeah.
Armin, yes. We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.